So here's a question for you. Do you feel like you are spending more time having meetings than actually working? Well, you're not alone. A new study suggests that not only are most of us in more meetings, but we are spending more time in them as well. The CBC's Scott Peterson has more on the study.
And the problem with this is it seems that people are preparing for these meetings as a be-all and end-all and not preparing for what they should be doing, and that is their specific job. So we're finding with this study, since the beginning of the pandemic at spring of 2020, that there's about a 200% increase in the time that we're spending in meetings, and about 3 times more meetings because we're liking this Microsoft Teams and a lot of the virtual ways that people communicate with each other. So according to the study, since the beginning of the pandemic, this is just flourished to, they're calling it meetings bloat, if you will. So one is that inefficient meetings are the #1 cause of workplace distraction that hurts productivity, also followed closely by having too many meetings, and this is having just to get ready for a meeting, like I said. Also, the heaviest Microsoft Team meeting users are spending close to 8 hours a day, every week, and that's virtually the entire time that you're in a meeting. Also, nearly 2 in 3 people as well responded say that they struggle with having to prepare for the meetings and not enough time and energy for their job because of the meetings. And also 58% say that it's difficult to brainstorm in a virtual meeting because somebody's usually making a presentation. Usually there's a dominance of one person over everyone else where everyone just has to agree. And also about 55% say that following a meeting or after a meeting is unclear. And in effect, all this adds to different stress. And if you're being stressed, you're not productive, and if you're concentrating on the meeting and getting those PowerPoint presentations in order, you're not doing what you should be doing. So are we just now a wormhole of meetings for the sake of meetings? And that's a lot of criticism too, and there's a lot of funny commentary on that, with The Office and a lot of other places saying that we're just meeting for the sake of meeting.
The CBC's Scott Peterson. Well, for more on this, I want to bring in Steve Rogelberg. He is, ironically, going to have a little meeting with us right now about all of this. He is the Chancellor Professor at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. Thank you, Mr. Rogelberg, for your time. You are also the author of Glad We Met, The Art and Science of One-to-One Meetings and the Surprising Science of Meetings. Stephen, thank you. Welcome so much to this program. How did it get to this point where you think so many workers feel overwhelmed by meetings?
Yes, meeting activity is way up since the pandemic, and we do need some retraction for sure. There are multiple reasons to explain the increase. Some are benevolent, some reflect laziness, and some reflect managerial insecurity. So benevolent, we want to promote inclusion and employee voice, and meetings are a great mechanism for doing that. Laziness, technology makes it so easy to schedule a meeting and over-invite. We can hold people's calendars captive readily. Thus, we don't stop and really think about who really has to be at the meeting. We just invite. Insecurity. Having a remote staff led managers to schedule, or should I say overschedule meetings designed to monitor work activities. This is what many managers felt they had to do to be sure people did the work assigned to them, as opposed to just giving their people plenty of room and just monitor outcomes.
Okay, so Stephen, we know this is, a digital age. We are in the age of the Zoom meetings. So are meetings, do you think, useful at all in this day of age? Has work culture perhaps evolved past the need for meetings?
So let's remember, the fundamental problem with meetings is less about quantity, although that is an issue, and more about quality. Sitting in a poorly run meeting is devastating to employee productivity and results in a host of negative outcomes from stress, disengagement, turnover, and even meeting recovery syndrome, where we're negatively affected by a bad meeting. Even when it ends, it hurts our productivity. We ruminate and we co-ruminate. We have to tell others about our bad meeting. However, the research shows that companies doing well with meetings were actually found to be more profitable than those that are not running their meetings well. And let's not forget, meetings are an evolution from the command and control systems of the Industrial Revolution, where people were marginalized. They are a recognition that voice and participation matters. They represent a key mechanism in promoting organizational democracy.
So Steve, give us the goods here. What makes a good meeting?
A good meeting is relevant. It has the right attendees in it. The leader is actively facilitating, making sure they're bringing out voices. The meeting has a clear close where people leave the meeting knowing exactly what was decided and who's responsible for doing different things.
So one of the things we saw this research discover is that some people are reporting that meetings are actually distracting them from the tasks that they need to do that perhaps require a higher level of focus. So why do you think meetings are so distracting?
Well, meetings are a form of interruption of sorts, and interruptions have negative effects on individuals, right? People are working, they're doing their thing, and lo and behold, a meeting comes up and takes them out of their flow. And getting back into something once you've been interrupted takes a great deal of cognitive effort.
So what are then some strategies companies can sort of employ here to either reduce the number of meetings or perhaps make them more efficient and effective?
Great question. So within every team or department, there's an implicit or explicit meeting ecosystem. And this ecosystem drives meeting load and meeting practices. And as a leader, your role in changing meeting culture is critical. At the same time, meetings are inherently a shared experience. Given this, the collective has to be actively involved in the process of change around meetings so these collective norms change. And the mechanism for doing this are new conversations, right? We start to chart out a new future of work from a meetings and collaboration perspective. Conversations where new understandings and paths are forged, conversations designed to break rhythms and start new ones. Conversations with your team around what meetings are truly needed, how long meetings should be, when should we invite, and most importantly, not invite, and how can we keep people appropriately in the loop so that they don't feel excluded. It's also a good idea for leaders to do an audit of sorts of their reoccurring meetings and work to re-engineer them so they're truly effective. And there's other things that organizations can do. For example, every organization on their employee engagement survey should have content around meetings. We need leaders to be getting feedback on how well they're running their meetings. And we also need them to be held accountable if they're not doing a good job.
Okay, so those are the leaders, the managers, the bosses. Just quickly here, is there anything individual workers can do to make meetings better, or are we just like at the whims of company policies here?
That's a tricky one. Attendees basically relinquish their power in so many ways. They can certainly block out periods of time on their calendar to reclaim time. Depending on the relationship with meeting leaders, they can ask whether their attendance is truly needed or whether they can just attend part of the meeting that's relevant to them. In the meeting itself, they can be a model attendee, right? They can keep their contributions tight, build on others' contributions, and listen carefully, the types of behaviors that we want to see in all. They can engage in shadow facilitation, where they can work to include others and bring in more voices. But most importantly, they can remember the feeling of being invited to a meeting they were not needed at and vow not to do it for the meetings they run. We all are the problems here. Each of us needs to commit to making our meetings better and leaner.
All right, we will leave it there for today. That was Stephen Rogelberg. He is the Chancellor's Professor at the University of North Carolina.